Christ is risen. None of us would like to be counted as the successor of Judas. But our reading from the Acts of the Apostles this morning recalls the successor to Judas as one of the 12, the Apostle Matthias. Indeed, his feast day fell 2 days ago on Friday. I sometimes wonder whether St. Matthias saw the humour in being second choice. After all, he was the second choice, not the first choice, but the second choice to succeed Judas among the 12. Imagine how St. Matthias might have felt. The first time round, he was not good enough to be among the 12, but Judas was, and he would betray Christ. So too were Peter, James, John, and Thomas. They were called to be among the 12, but Peter would betray Christ 3 times before the crucifixion. James and John had ambitions beyond their station. Thomas would refuse to believe until he met the risen Christ on his own terms. Now, in this morning's reading from the Acts of the Apostles, the remaining 11 have met to pick a successor to replace Judas Iscariot. But even now, even on the second time round, Matthias is not the first choice, the first name mentioned. Instead, the first name to come forward is that of Joseph called Barsabbas, who was also known as Justus. We are in the in-between time, between the day of Ascension last Thursday and the day of Pentecost next Sunday. According to the Acts of the Apostles, in the days following the ascension of Christ, Peter proposes to the assembled disciples, who number 120, that they choose one among them to fill the place of Judas. And so the assembled believers come forward with 2 nominations. The first choice is Joseph Barsabbas or Joseph Justus. Nobody ever since remembers Joseph called Barsabbas, who was also known as Justus. His saintly life, such as it was, has passed into oblivion. It may only be as an afterthought that someone suggests the name of Matthias, and then they can't make up their minds. Instead, they cast lots, and the lot falls to Matthias. I doubt any of us would be happy to hear we have been selected or nominated for any role in the church. For example, at our select vestry meetings of these weeks, by tossing a coin, drawing straws, or rolling a dice, as others pray about whether we are suitable or qualified. St. Matthias is unnamed before this account. After this, there's no further mention of him. He is the forgotten apostle, like the 5th Beatle. Having made an unexpected entrance onto the stage, St. Matthias walks off again, and we hear nothing more about him. His name, his identity, his life story have been forgotten, apart from making him the patron saint of alcoholism and smallpox and a few small towns. We're not sure where he died or where he's buried. The early church writer Clement of Alexandria says the apostles are not chosen for some outstanding character and certainly not on their own merits. The apostles are chosen by Christ for his own reasons, but not for their merits. If St. Matthias had not been worthy of being called first time round, how is he worthy now to join the 12? St. Matthias is a warning to me. He silently warns me, I am here because someone else failed. The same thing could happen to me if I stop taking my nourishment from the true vine and stop bearing good fruit. We are often in the place we are in life only because the person who was here before us failed or died or moved on to somewhere else. Joshua led Israel because Moses failed in the wilderness. David became king because Saul failed and died. Matthias became an apostle because Judas failed and died. Discipleship, being a follower of Christ, is never about my worthiness, my merits. It is Christ alone who calls us. St. Matthias was elected not because he was worthy, but because he would become worthy. Christ chooses each one of us in the same way. We have been grafted into the children of God, into the company of the children of God, into the church, not through our own merits, but by God's grace. Christ is risen.